Hello. Welcome everybody to yet another exciting episode of ZZT Games. Today is going to be more music. But unlike that fun Christmas concert thing, which was full of really great stuff, this is considerably more mediocre. I just turned down the mic a little. This is going to be kev-san's Freedom. It's a ZZT rock opera. It's not that good. There's obviously a lot of effort, but even he admits that this was not a fit for ZZT whatsoever. So for the most part, I'm going to be pretty dang quiet because it's got a lot of music. So we shall sit and listen. Alright. This is kev-san's Freedom. Oh, yeah. To add insult to injury, the graphics are really nice, but they're by Anthony Testa and not kev-san. So all the best stuff has nothing to do with the guy who put his name on the title. It is very teenager writing. The war lasted over 20 years. No one knew why it started. No one remembered when it started. No one cared anymore. It ended in the devastation of man, excluding a small number of people. These few made it their goal to make sure a catastrophe such as this would never happen again. meeting of the elder of the survivors went well. They decided people were no longer fit to make their own choices. They created a perfect world where no one would ever cry again. Are you moved yet? Micah was born. The elders saw, even at birth, that he was extraordinary. They knew something must be done to discourage his growth. Out of fear that he might lead the people out of the box they were in, the elders placed Micah in a center for the mentally retarded. There, he would be safe from the influence of his peers and knowledge itself. Dang. I do love the visuals of these elders, though. It's really awesome. Those are some very good rhymes. Micah felt alone in the world, paralyzed compared to the rest of humanity. The elder's plan was working. Micah felt so bad about who he was that he was completely alone in the town. The children in the center were given a day to go play in the park, strictly forbidden from any contact with other humans. But this day, and a girl on this day, would change his life forever. This was his first encounter with a person outside the center for 5 years. Those are some eyes. Micah met Rena. She was a revolutionary his age, who felt she was destined to overtake the corrupt government. They connected immediately. Micah was able to share his feelings with her, and vice versa. They fell in love instantly. She convinced him to leave the Hellmouth city. To be free, she said, you must think outside of the lines. Micah and Rena escaped that night. They got away from the village, but why? Were they really free now, or did they live in fear and misery? That was it. I hope you found it very profound. They're thinking a lot about life and all it means, and romance, and all that great stuff. That's it. I mean, to his credit, that's like 10 minutes of PC speaker music. It's a pretty good amount. There's actually a lot if you go into the editor. So we will do just that. But that's the thrilling plot. There's a whole lot of like notes and stuff if you actually take a look inside. Thanks to everyone who supported me and anything I've ever done, inspired me to write this symphony. But you are the true symphony of my life. Thanks to Mass for being there when I need a friend. Thanks to God for the music and guidance. You know, this was inspired by Danny Elfman, Weird Al, The Who, Pink Floyd, various Easy Tears, the usual crew. George Orwell. The works. And then for our graphics, we get good old Chuck, Counting Crows, Sticks, freedom is the most incredible thing I've ever worked on. Enjoy the new millennium. And it was several months in the making. Oh, actually, it looks like it was a year in the making. This one's 98. Oh yeah, there's this board, which would imply it should be like the starting board. But it's unused. Get one of these great boards, just a wall of text. Feel free to do some reading. Here's a summary of the game. Hello fellow ZZTer, this is Matt Furness. I appreciate you downloading his game. Hope you'll find it mentally challenging. A game that helps you re-examine the way we look at things in the world we live in. There's a ton of symbolism I've snuck into the rock opera, so be on the lookout. I've realized many things through this game, some of them being what we call freedom may not be true freedom. Understanding of why most RPGs only have one song with lyrics in it. Lyrics are very tough for me to write, as you will soon realize. I hope, though, that the storytelling will be enhanced by the way the words are presented. It is impossible to write a symphony with a one-track beeping PC speaker. Sit back, relax, and crank the volume. Yeah, you know, symbolism for stuff. It's a very deep game. That's it. The game does have some interesting reviews. It's got a 2.5 out of 5 overall. Let's see. Funk says, a musical game with no game and crap music. Because the entire thing is basically a huge cinema, there's not a lot for the player to do but walk from screen to screen. This would be perfectly fine with a plot where it's gripping as, say, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, or even Problem Child 3, Junior in Love. Sadly, this isn't the case, and the wafer-thin plot is made even more lame by its numerous holes. Why is our hero special? How do the elders keep control? If all it takes is to run off, why did nobody try it before? Won't the city try and take him back? Or, seeing as all he did was fuck off, why were they worried in the first place? Why didn't he try to cause a revolution? Why? 1 out of 5. Jonathan Wellington Wells, who did Evil Sorcerer's Party, which was going to be a ZZT musical, but scrapped that idea because he realized, wow, it's not really a thing you can do, says, innovative. Good news. If freedom is innovative, unique, and creative. Bad news. So is my latest idea for a children's TV series, Dizzy the Duck Teaches Linear Algebra. Good news. Freedom is an attempt to do an opera in ZZT. This is ambitious. Bad news. As is trying to perform War and Peace with hand puppets. Bad news. Freedom has lousy lyrics. Worse news. But then, so do quite a few songs that linger on top of the charts for weeks. No big problem, right? Bad news. Freedom has an awful plotline. Worse news. So do the majority of ZZT games. Freedom is, as ZZT games go, pretty average. It tries to do a lot and doesn't quite manage it. Depressing news. For ZZT games, pretty average is 1 to 2 out of 5. Many of the worst games never made it to Z2 and are presumably floating around on the hard drive of somebody who downloaded them long ago. 2 out of 5. Let's see, Smiley19, an A for effort, but let's see, here's some context, boys. Freedom, for a ZZT game, has some massive hype behind it. It featured music by Kevin Carter, aka kev-san, who was a 13-year-old musical prodigy. It was announced during a brief high in classy, deep, meaningful ZZT game spearheaded by Anthony Testa, who would later provide the kick-ass graphics to Freedom. The main selling point was the fact that it was a rock opera done in ZZT with music by kev-san. On paper, it looked like a hit. But, let me give some history here. I was good friends with Kev, so I can tell you that freedom was mulling over in his head for a very long time. It's probably a 13-year-old who listens to Prodigy, yes. However, Kev is, IMHO, a better composer than writer, and it shows. Many ideas were basically lifted straight from the classic novel The Giver, along with little drops of the darker 1984. Small community, protagonists with some sort of undefined specialness, evil government, and an overall sense of oppression with a tender love story attached. Okay, sure, not very creative, but I'm sure that part of Kev's reasoning to make Freedom a musical is because you can get away with unoriginality in a musical, so long as your music is good. Almost. Let's see. Now, this part I wish we had a copy of. Despite some of these other reviews, some of the music is pretty kick-ass. There used to be a CD Kev had which contained all the music using synthesized instruments, and I can tell you from what little I heard, the music kicked ass before being butchered into this. I would love to hear the originals of these songs if they began life somewhere other than PC Speaker. Then there's a whole lot of words about each and every song, whether it's good or not. Ending music, beautiful, expands on the tune of the overture and takes it into an almost apocalyptic direction. It's wonderful and causes one to think of what could have been if the story had been expanded upon. The lyrics were fine to exude the class that Anthony Testa so desperately wanted ZZT to have. And then it just drops us. Did they really live happily ever after? Or did they just screw themselves over? Sadly, it could have been interesting to see Rena's revolutionary personality taken deeper. Why is she fighting? What is Jirash the Elder really up to? What's so damn special about Micah? Sadly, none of this will ever be found out. Kev intentionally made his ending ambiguous out of keeping things, quote, open to interpretation. The only problem is he should have made a story that was interpretable in the first place. As it stands, we're left with some pretty incomprehensible symbolism, atmospheric graphics with no atmosphere, music that's up and down and then some. Yeah, admittedly Kev had a lot of frustration over this one, but he should have kept at it in some spots. Oh well. Rating 2.5 out of 5. And lastly, another well-known ZZT musician, Mad Tom, who we heard a lot of his stuff from the Frost games with that Christmas concert from back in December. He says, "You know, this used to be my favorite ZZT game. Even after playing the requisite Zenithnator and Draco classics that compromised my earlier obsessions. Of course, back then I was trying to stake some sort of claim as a ZZT musician, and I suppose I must have thought that, much like some indie rock kitty, a good way to get one's name out in the open was to idolize something almost nobody else seemed to really like. Translating anything symphonic, or beyond two instruments really, in ZZT is not an easy task. I've been there. For half of the projects, the wise musician will realize about halfway through that this simply isn't working, that even alternating notes just doesn't make it sound right. I've done plenty of tracks that way. Kev takes on the, in my opinion, insurmountable task of doing this with one track of sound. Bluntly, I wouldn't even entertain the idea of doing this, and given Kev's ambitions, I think it's been done very well. While I'm not surprised to learn from the previous review that kev-san was or is regarded as a musical prodigy in the vein of Muska and other ZZTer, Freedom just doesn't work. Grainy, testy graphics with no playability, a remarkably brief story with vague utopian connotations, a hollow love interest topped off with the wails, squeals, and buzzes of a minor key track. No matter how good music and the story behind it is, you cannot convey it in its full glory through a beeping PC speaker. Kev himself acknowledges this in the editor notes. This is why I now firmly believe that the idea of a ZZT musical just isn't going to work. It really didn't even work with The Rose, and that's Will for crying out loud, who, once again, was featured heavily in the Christmas concert. ZZT music has and always will take an unfortunate backseat to the actual action, the characters battling it out on screen, the puzzles, the shooting ruffians, while running through endless ammo fields. If you're as talented as an artist as kev-san evidently is, and kev-san didn't do the graphics, you have the disposal of musical instruments, paintbrushes, some kind of canvas, everything you need. The world is your oyster. But when you're working with the monotrack ear-piercing squeal of an outmoded form of PC sound, some things are really better left unsaid. 2 out of 5. Yeah, I think it's just... There's definitely a trend as ZZT got older and older to make things in it just because, wow, somebody actually did that in ZZT. And sometimes that's not a very good idea, as we just heard. So that was Freedom. It's very ambitious. But man, there's just nothing there that holds up. The music's okay. I think the graphics are kind of neat. But wow, are the lyrics bad. It's so incredibly generic and bland and unexplored. And that's why there's basically nothing else like it. So, thank you all for watching. I'll stream something again next week. I would love to find something vaguely romantic or Valentine's themed, and so far this is the closest I've found that isn't also horribly offensive. So we may be out of luck there. But we'll stream again in a week, most likely. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.